Penguin Random House Audio presents Black Genius, Essays on an American Legacy. This is the author, Tre Johnson. For my unwavering day ones, Wanda, Kendra, and Sean. Introduction. Name one genius that ain't crazy. Kanye West. Feedback. As a person who steps in and out of Black worlds, I am often exposed to how the rest of the world sees us. I watch on social media, in art galleries, at music festivals, or on weekend nights downtown, how Black people strut and flutter our various beauties at everyone else, sometimes as a signal to each other, sometimes as an act of defiance to the rest of the world. We're utterly amazing. Yet Black folks are consistently, persistently, intentionally, conveniently, diabolically left out of conversations about genius all the time. That is why this book exists. I think America knows this, but has repeatedly resisted our genius to the point of mutual destruction. Black Genius is a series of knowledgeable observations. I've watched how the world seems to both be infatuated with and infuriated by Black presence. We're seen as a boon and a burden. None of that has stopped a total excavation of our existence. Our creativity, resiliency, majesty, and intensity have been on the cadaver table for generations now due to the several somethings that happen within awe-inspiring Black identities and experiences. In Black Genius, I define the concept of genius by looking at the intersections of how we've used our cultures, identities, histories, communities, and values to augment not only how we talk about and explore ourselves in America's confine, but also how we better the country for everyone. Black Genius is about how we leverage what might typically be seen as disadvantages, our marginalized, low placement in society, our Blackness, our communities, and flip them into a series of superpowers. It is about how, despite the cyclical nature of white America granting and then retracting political, social, and financial liberties to Black Americans when it served them, wars, voting, housing, employment rights, etc., we have managed a series of cultural ingenuities to press forward. I wrote this book in admiration of our long, continual ability to reshape culture to do our bidding. It's about how malleable we've always had to be to evolve our humanity, our joy, our inventiveness, our grief, our pursuits, our history, and our movement. These types of genius have looked different in our uses of language, fashion, music, education, and community. When I think of genius, the graffiti-style airbrush tee comes to mind. The style was made obsolete in another example of white America's greed for exploiting Black culture. You know the airbrush tee, that non-fussy shirt you could find at mall kiosks, Black bloc festivals, and on the corner. The ones sold on the side by someone's cousin or out of the trunk of a car. The ones hung up on display in urban wear shops and sneaker joints in the hood. The airbrush tee was the hood apparel for a certain time in the 90s. Customized airbrush tees of literally anybody could be made by the artist. You could get your girl or boy, or both of y'all, spray painted onto a white tee. You could get Aaliyah, complete with sunrise, sunset dates, and shades, on a white tee. You could get unofficial recreations of rap album covers or Black slang. You could be a walking, loving obituary to your relative, best friend, lover, classmate, whoever. The shirts might have looked cheap and tacky to a lot of people, but the airbrush tee was all heart, all skill, all DIY. It remains symbolic of how Black people find inventive ways inside of a racist, capitalist America to show each other love. These airbrush tees with their sometimes hard-to-figure-out renderings, is that Mary J. Blige or Janet Jackson? Bright colors, graffiti-style lettering, and itchy t-shirt material were the kind of thing a lot of people avoided and mocked. But fast forward to the 2020s, and you'll see how the airbrush tee became another Black genius casualty in America's exploitation of Black culture. Nowadays, everyone from big box stores to fashion boutiques to estate shops have stripped mined Black mourning and turned it into profit. Of all the types of artifacts that we use to mourn, the hanging sneakers on overhead lines, the teddy bear and flower altars on city corners, These businesses selected the custom tee. You can buy RIP type tees of Biggie, Aaliyah, and Tupac everywhere from Gap to Target, from online shops to boutique stores. Devoid of the grieving process, these tees are now nostalgia products, marketed and manufactured back to everyone as a way of conferring authenticity and coolness. As clothing clout chasers, they say, I was into this black shit before you were. A couple of years ago, while vacationing in Northern California, I was shopping in a local downtown when I popped into a women's boutique clothing store. There among the racks of high-end bedazzled jeans, thin knit cardigans, and floppy sun hats, I saw an artificially worn-looking oversized sweatshirt with a crown Biggie selling for $130. The Biggie sweatshirt was made vintage style by a line called Daydreamer. The product description for the sweatshirt reads, with his lyrics often telling the tale of his own life, hardship and criminality, debauchery and celebration, we leave you with an authentic portrait of the renowned rapper paying tribute to his last photo shoot just 3 days before his death. Accented in gold glitter and designed on a French terry raglan crew that's fitted yet readable. Biggie's on a French terry raglan crew for $130 now. His death a literal selling point. A far cry from the $10 to $20 airbrush tee. Now it seems like it was all a dream. Daydreamer's Biggie sweatshirt is a great mini example of the weird relationship between capitalism and black culture, especially hip-hop. It's a story of how so much of black DIY culture gets gobbled up and repackaged, and how it can lose its meaning and authenticity once it becomes mass-produced. There's something incredibly chilling about seeing this through Biggie's arc. A brother who once freestyled outside of NYC bodegas and street corners, rose to mainstream fame, and was shot and killed, and was then reconstituted as so much product that his story, his life, his meaty mouth delivery, and sweaty swagger are now all fodder used to sell expensive sweatshirts aged to look like the wearer has been a hip-hop day-oneer, that they've endured the same battles to hold onto culture, to this man and his music, longer than you. The airbrush tee culture saw a mix of dying down and leveling up after the 90s. It was sometimes a nostalgic flex, signaling a type of authenticity and realness to the street as culture's cyclical nature brought a series of 90s aesthetics back. Drake, for example, famously wore an airbrush Aaliyah tee several years ago, while other rappers like YG and Kanye revived the style in conjunction with album releases and Yeezy promotions. At its heart is customization, and customization is uniqueness, and uniqueness is individuality, and individuality requires some measure of independence and creativity. That's why the airbrush tee owes its origin to 70s and 80s graffiti, when Edwin Fade Sakasa got started with the idea back in NYC. But like many things we create, airbrush tees started being co-opted by bigger brands and companies, especially places like Disney and Warner Brothers, keen on how urban artists were using characters like Bugs, Mickey, Elmer Fudd, and Donald Duck in black red, urban styles, and affects. They took the concept and mass-produced it, and that eventually led to what we see now. Scores of fast fashion tees at Target or online at ASOS, repackaging decades-old album covers, pop stars, songs, and cartoons. This has pushed the airbrush tee back into the margins of the hood, while Alexander Wang repurposed the idea in the 2010s during New York Fashion Week. The airbrush tee is the perfect example of the culture that's been taken out of our hands and reproduced for mass consumption, and which has required the work of cultural archivists to keep its black, hip-hop roots alive. It's also a microcosm of how something we do may first be ignored, deemed ghetto, or criminalized, either literally or culturally, before it becomes accepted and appreciated for what it is. I wrote Black Genius to applaud the amazing things that we do every day at every level. I initially set out to write about schools and schooling people, about performing and showing out, about drawing and you drawn. I wanted to show and remind us that we're incredibly special and that the world's often incredibly lucky and rich because of what we bring to the table in a country that's often made us cut the tree, build the table, serve,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?